So whenever we come on the topic of photo editing softwares or anything related to editing pictures, we immediately jump to softwares like Lightroom or Photoshop. However, a majority of us seem to forget that there are a lot of you guys who have never ventured into the subject of photo editing and need to be brushed up from the basics itself. On that note, today we are talking about an application that is not only a superb photo editing software either for Windows or for Mac, which has a lot of other features that other softwares don't offer, but also an amazing starting point for anyone who has never ventured into photo editing softwares seriously. On that note, what's up guys, Anwar here, and today we are talking about the best photo editing software for beginners. With that being said, without any further ado, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Okay guys, so the software that I'm talking about is none other than PhotoFire by Wondershare, who are also the proud sponsors of today's video, so huge shout out to them for that. Okay, so the first things first, before we get into the actual photo editing software, hit the first link in the description, which will take you to their website from where you can download the software for free, either for Windows or for Mac. Once you have downloaded it, go ahead and open it up. I'm just going to type PhotoFire in my computer so that I can install and open it. Once you've installed it, this is how it's going to come up in your main desktop. You either have the photo editor, the photo cutter, photo eraser, and two other add-ons known as Photo Maximizer and Photo Focus. Now we'll be going through each of them individually in a short while. However, the main focus is the photo editor. So hit on that and hit run, and it's going to open the photo editor up. Now once the photo editor has been opened, you will have 4 sections: recent files, samples, and open. Now to show you guys how to actually edit photos inside this software, I'm just going to select one of the samples from this picture. This one looks good, so just hit and click on that and it's going to open it up in the photo editing software. Now the timeline or the windows of the photo editing software are pretty straightforward. The main window is the picture where you can see the changes that you make, and on the right hand side you have all the different sections, from filters, which is known as effects, to cropping it in whichever way you want to crop it. Then you have the adjustments where you can adjust the temperature, hue, brightness, contrast, and other things. Color balance, tone curves for you to play around with the RGB curves, and also applying creative blur or vignetting if you're into that kind of stuff. You can also go old school and add frames as well as textures, including light leaks and texts in case you want to. However, let's talk about photo editing or editing this photo in the first place. So the first thing what I usually like to do, and this is just me, is I completely stay clear of the effects tab, because these are basically just filters, and if you're taking photo editing seriously, you know that whatever we do is manual and adding filters is not really our mojo. So the second thing I want to do is go to the crop section. Now you can either crop your image before you start editing, or you can crop it after you finish the actual edit, which is what I prefer to do. So again, we're just going to skip this section right here and go to the adjustment section. Now this is where your editing process is going to start. Now the first option here is called temperature, where you can basically control how cool or warm your picture is going to be. So check this out. If I click on it and drag it to the right hand side, to the yellow side, my photo is going to become more yellow in nature, which basically means I'm adding it to the warmer side of colors. However, if I do the opposite and drag it to the bluer side, it's gonna become more warm, and therefore you can select the hue. Now for this particular photo, I think adding a slight warm tone is what I want to do, so plus 20% looks good. You can also quickly see what the before and after is by clicking on this icon with a portrait image on it. So just click on that and it's gonna show you what the before and after of the pictures look like in various formats that you want to. Now let's go back to the original view, and the hue is something that you can adjust as well. It's going to change the hue of different colors, going all the way from green to magenta or purple. Now brightness is basically exposure, so you can increase it. However, it's gonna make your image look fake if you overdo it like this. So what I'm gonna do is slightly underexpose it by -2% to give it that moody look. Contrast is again the relationship between the highlights and the shadows. So the more it is, the darker or punchy your image is going to look, and vice versa. You can adjust it, and plus 20% over here again looks pretty good for me. Now we have shadows, which will basically brighten up the dark areas of your image, such as the areas under this bridge and whatnot. So if you increase the shadows, the dark areas of your image will be lit up even more. However, all of it in moderation is what I would suggest. So I usually go for a punchier image, so -10 or 11 looks good for me. Highlights are again the bright parts of your image, so the sky, all the whites that are in your image. So if you boost it to the right hand direction, the whites are gonna get brighter, and you might overexpose your image and vice versa while underexposing. A good practice in order to see the clouds is to always reduce the highlights. As you can see the clouds right now, which weren't visible when the image or the highlights were at 0 or 1%. So anything in moderation, -50% looks pretty good. Clarity is basically the sharpness. It's going to increase the HDR of the image, and it's going to make it look more dramatic. Now a lot of people misuse it and go to plus 100%, which looks absolutely horrible in my opinion. So you should play with it in moderation. Again, 25 or 30% looks pretty good. Saturation is pretty self-explanatory. Generally, you won't have to play with it if you did not shoot the picture in a flat profile. But then again, that's pretty much it for the adjustment section. And you can already see that the image looks far better than what we had started out with, at least in my opinion. Now let's go to color balance, where you can split tone or add three-way colors into your images. I'm not going to go in depth since these are artistic tools. However, what I generally like to do is add a split tone between the shadows and the highlights. So if I just add a kind of teal-ish shadow to the image, it's gonna make it look and give it that Hollywood look. So that's what I'm going for right now. Just a little bit of teal and increase the saturation. And for the highlights, we're gonna go for orange to get that teal and orange look which is very famous nowadays. So what we're gonna do is just head over there, or you can even reverse the process and add an orangish hue to the image and a teal look in the highlights, if what I'm saying makes any sense at all. So we're just gonna look for the tealness in the image, and yeah, you can increase or decrease the saturation, and you can see the image already looks a lot better with a simple color grade. Now the tone curves are basically the same thing. You can highlight or use or change the midtones and the shadows of the red, green and blue colors respectively. What I like to do is select the main RGB channel, which is going to adjust all the colors and create a slight S, if you can see. So these are the highlights when you raise them up, and over here if you raise them down, it's going to create a slight S. As you can see, the picture looks a lot dramatic already. And that's pretty much it about all settings that I like to do. Creative blur is again a section where you can add blur to several parts of the image. So if it's a portrait image and you want to add focus on a certain part of the image, for example the car over here, you can do that. I wouldn't recommend it because honestly for pictures like this it doesn't really work out and it does not look that good, TBH. However, you can reduce the amount and still make it look pretty natural in case you wanted to. But what I'm gonna do is not apply any blur because this image is not needed. Vignetting is again darkening the corners of your image. You can do that by a little bit, and it's gonna make your photo look pretty dramatic in my opinion. But don't go crazy. 100% just looks horror movie kinda. So around 45, 50 or even 20 is fine with me. And yeah, as you can see, we have already made a lot of changes to the image and it looks pretty damn good. Now adding frames as well as textures are really up to you. You can even add texts and whatnot. And all in all, as you can see that we have edited a simple picture that used to look like this into something like this with really 3 or 4 minutes of ideas and settings of adjustment. So that's pretty much it. Now what we're gonna do last but not the least is crop the image up. Now Instagram is 4:5, so you want to crop it in a 4:5 ratio. So just hit 4 and then hit 5 and hit OK, and now you can crop the image for Instagram. So make sure you apply the rule of thirds and whatnot. And for example, this kind of looks pretty good, so just hit enter. when you're done, and there you're done with your image. You can also view it in high definition, or zoom in and zoom out in case you want to see something. Once your edit is done, hit on save, and it's gonna select the dot folder where you're gonna save it. So I'm just gonna hit desktop and hit save, and you can hit save. And once that is absolutely done, I think the photo is already here, as you guys can see. And yeah, there we go. That is a simple edit in a software called Wondershare PhotoFire, which is super cool. Now I'm just gonna go quickly through what the other parts of the softwares do. So the photo cutter is basically a place where you can replace backgrounds and add different photos. Pretty self-explanatory if you decide to install it. And photo eraser also allows you to erase the background of the images, which is again pretty self-explanatory. And the other photo software products that they have, they are paid, but if you decide to install them, you'll get trials and various documents and guides on how to actually use them. So all of that is really up to you, but the main highlight of this application is the editor, which is super simple to use. So be sure to use it, download it, install it, get the idea of basic photo editing before you get super ambitious and install Lightroom and whatnot. And well guys, that is pretty much it for today's video. In case you guys did enjoy it, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. A huge shout out to Wondershare once again for sponsoring today's video and helping me continue make videos for you guys. With that being said, this is Anubhav signing out. I will see you guys in my next one. Until then, have a great day. Peace out.
Let's take both of our souls.